Oh, stop right there. I want to tell you about something. Jakey Ross is planning to do one of the biggest AFL videos ever and one of the biggest AFL events ever. 100 people versus 100 people in a game of footy. The biggest game of footy ever. And if you want to get involved, you can, but you must be living in Victoria. The event will be happening on Thursday, the 20th of April at 10 a.m. at Parkdale. So if you want to get involved, click the video in the link in the description below. Head over to Jakey Ross's video and get involved in this massive event. It's gonna be huge if it happens, and I really want it to happen. I'm getting involved, Cardman's getting involved, so make sure you get involved as well, and let's get this massive AFL event to happen. What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to the Bit of Footy YouTube channel. In today's video, we're going to be running through my round 2 tips. Now, before we get into my round 2 tips, let's take a look back and see how exactly I did back in round 1. So in round 1, I got 6 out of 9 tips. Haha, funny number, 69. I'm so funny, I'm like 12. But yeah, looking at my own tipping competition on ESPN, which you should go join via the link in the description or the pinned comment as well. I am currently second out of 8 participants. The top spot is someone named _Jennifer7, who's got a Pies logo though, so I don't mind them being in top spot, and they got 7 out of 9 tips in the first week, which is pretty good. But yeah, I'm on second spot, 6 tips out of 9. Go Time AFL is currently at the bottom with 3 out of 9 tips. But you know, there'll be plenty of things that happen during the season, so Go Time could climb up the ladder. But yeah, that's how it stands at the moment. But yeah, like I said, if you want to join, do it via the link in the description or the pinned comment below. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into my round 2 AFL tips. Alright, kicking off the round 2 of footy, we've got the Blues taking on the Cats at the MCG, 7:20 p.m. The Blues are coming off that draw against the Tigers, while the Cats are coming off a loss against, well, my mighty Magpies. But I do think that the Cats will bounce back in this game. I think it's going to be a very tight contest, and it's going to be a close encounter. But I think the Cats will bounce back in this one. So I've tipped the Cats to get the job done in this one by a margin of 14 points. I think, yeah, it's going to be a close game, but the Cats will just edge out the Blues in the final quarter and get the job done by a margin of 14 points in this one. I still feel like the Blues will be very competitive in this game like they were against the Tigers last weekend, but I think the Cats will just be a little bit too good and edge it out in the end and get the job done by a margin of 14 points. Next up, we've got a Friday night blockbuster. It is the Lions taking on the D's, 7:50 p.m. on a Friday night at the Gabba up in Brizzy. The Lions are coming off a, well, kind of big defeat against Port Adelaide last weekend, while the D's are the opposite. They're coming off a big win against the Dogs last weekend. I'm going to be tipping the D's to get the job done in this game. Yeah, they played really well last weekend, and that Gawn and Grundy combo was very, very entertaining to watch. So yeah, I think the D's are going to be too good for the Lions in this game. Hopefully the Lions can be more competitive than they were last weekend against the Power. I mean, they're at home this weekend, so surely they don't get blown out of the water. But yeah, I still feel like the D's The way that they played last weekend against the Dogs, it was pretty magnificent to watch. So I feel like, the momentum from that game is going to carry over to this weekend, and I think the D's will get the job done over the Lions in this one. Next up, we've got my Pies taking on the Power to kick off the Saturday games. 1:45 at the MCG. This one is to be. The Pies are coming off a very, very good win against the Cats, while the Power are coming off a good win of their own against the Lions. So two teams coming off very good wins last weekend, but I think my Pies will get the job done. I mean, the momentum from the bloody third quarter, like the last stages of the third quarter onwards against the Cats last weekend from my Pies, was magnificent. And yeah, I feel like, sort of like the D's, the Pies are going to carry over momentum from that win against the Cats in front of their home crowd as well at the MCG and get the job done in this game. But the Power, they're coming off an impressive win themselves, so I feel like it's going to be a competitive, close game, this one. But I feel like the Pies will get the job done. Well, my Pies will get the job done over the Power in this one at the MCG. The next game, we've got the twilight game, the 4:35er between the Crows and the Tigers at the Adelaide Oval. The Crows coming off a pretty disappointing loss against the Giants. I say that because the Crows actually started off better in that game over the Giants, and then ended up losing. But the Tigers, they're coming off a draw against the Blues. Tom Lynch saving the day in that game for the Tigers. But yeah, I think the Tigers are going to get the job done in this game. I know it's at the Adelaide Oval and the Crows tend to play good footy at the Adelaide Oval, but I think the Tigers will be too good for the Crows in the end. I think the Crows are going to be very competitive in this one, like they are normally at games at the Adelaide Oval in front of their home fans. But yeah, like I just said, I think the Tigers will be too good. They'll want to, get a win on the board for season 2023, and I think this is the game where they get their first win and get their first 4 points. So I've dipped the Tigers over the Crows in this game. Next up, we move on to the Saturday night games. The two Saturday night games kicking off with the Dogs taking on the Saints at Marvel Stadium. The Dogs coming off that hefty loss against the D's, while the Saints are coming off a very impressive win against the Dockers. This is a tough one to tip because I feel like both teams' play styles match up against each other very well. But I feel like even though they got battered last weekend, I feel like the Dogs are going to bounce back in this game and get the job done. I feel like the Saints will be in it for the majority of the game and, stick in it until the last few minutes of the last quarter. And I feel like the Dogs will just edge the Saints out. I feel like it's going to be a classic game of footy. It's basically what I'm trying to say here, because the Saints and the Dogs, they normally have classic games of footy at Marvel Stadium, and I think this one will be another one of those games. But yeah, I think the Dogs are going to bounce back from their loss last weekend. I still feel like they have a lot to give from last weekend's loss against the D's, and I feel like they will turn it around and get the win this weekend over the Saints. Next up, we've got the Dockers taking on North Melbourne at Optus Stadium. The Dockers coming off that disappointing loss against the Saints, while the Roos are coming off a win against the Eagles, so they'll be feeling a bit spry about themselves. But I feel like at Optus Stadium, the Dockers are going to get the job done. And I sort of feel like the Dockers are going to come out firing. I feel like last weekend they lost the game defensively against the Saints, but against the Roos, I don't think that's going to be the same result that happens. I feel like the Dockers, like I just said, are going to come out firing in this game. And they're going to get the job done over North Melbourne. Hopefully North Melbourne can be competitive. I mean, Sheasel, he had 34 touches last weekend and just looked like he belonged in AFL footy. So if Sheasel can turn up and, the rest of the team can turn up with Sheasel, you never know what the result could be like. But I feel like at Optus Stadium, in front of Freo's home fans, the Dockers will respond from the loss last weekend and get the job done over North Melbourne. Next up, we've got the Swans taking on the Hawks to kick off the Sunday batch of games. This is the 1:10 p.m. game and it's at the SCG. The Swans are coming off a big win over the Suns, while the Hawks are coming off the opposite. They're coming off a big loss against the Bombers. Yep, the Swans, they looked like, they hadn't missed a beat and they just came out firing against the Suns. Besides the second quarter, it was just about a complete performance against the Suns, that game from the Swans. They looked very good in their style of footy as well. It was the opposite for the Hawks. The Hawks, they sort of started well in that game against the Bombers, but in the second quarter, the second part of the second quarter, you could say, onwards, the Hawks just got absolutely dominated, and now they're coming up against the Swans at the SCG as well. So hopefully it doesn't get too ugly. Hopefully the Hawks can be competitive, but I think the Swans, with the team that they have against the Hawks team, it's going to be the Swans game to lose this one. So I'm going to be tipping the Swans to beat the Hawks in this one at the SCG. Next up, we've got the Bombers taking on the Suns at Marvel Stadium, the 3:20 p.m. Sunday game. The Bombers, they're coming off the big win over the Hawks, while the Suns, they're coming off the big loss against the Swans. I'm going to be tipping the Bombers to get the job done in this game. They played magnificent against the Hawks last weekend, and I think they're going to, hopefully back it up this weekend against the Suns. Hopefully the Suns, can sort of play a complete game of footy. I feel like last weekend against the Swans, they didn't really play completely for 4 quarters. Hopefully they can play a complete 4-quarter game, be competitive in this one. The way that the Bombers looked last weekend, it was magnificent. So I think they're going to get the job done in this one against the Suns at Marvel Stadium. And the last game of the weekend, it is the Eagles taking on the Giants at Optus Stadium. The Eagles coming off the loss against North Melbourne, while the Giants are coming off a win against Adelaide. This is a tough one to tip because it is at Optus Stadium, so it's hard to even though they lost to North Melbourne, it's at Optus Stadium, so I think the Eagles can potentially win this one, but I have tipped the Giants just because once they got back into the game against the Crows, they did look half decent. But the Eagles, they were getting back into the game against North Melbourne as well. So you can see where I'm coming from. It is a hard game to tip. Both teams, they didn't really play the best brand of football last weekend, but one brand of football managed to get the job done in the end, and that was the Giants brand of football. So I think the Giants will just get the job done in this game. I think it's going to be another close game of footy, but I think the Giants will just nudge it out. They'll get across the finish line, and they're going to beat the Eagles in this one at Optus Stadium. But I think it's going to be a close game, and it's a tough one to tip as well. So good luck tipping this game. But yeah, that is all my tips done and dusted for this weekend of footy. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and if you haven't already, please join the ESPN tipping competition that I'm holding. The link to it will be in the description below and in the pinned comment as well, so you can't really miss it. Join it. It's going to be a fun tipping competition, and every week on the video I'll have the results of everyone from the last week. So yeah, if you want to be featured in a video, that's another way to get featured in a video throughout the tips. So yeah, make sure you join those. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll be back for another video very soon. Cheers.